Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Bridging Careers, our interviewing session, focusing on interviewing and especially on video interviews. So this is the 7th of 10 free events this week with over 40 amazing speakers. I'd like to begin by paying respects to the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. So I'm Yvonne Kelly. I'm the founder of Glow Up Careers. We're a tech-enabled community of career coaches globally. We're also a social enterprise, and that's why we're bringing you Bridging Careers in partnership with Cisco live on YouTube all this week for free. So all of our speakers here and all through the week have volunteered their time, and it's just been amazing the feedback that we're getting from the people that we're helping, inspiring. We had a mental health session the other day. We've had people reaching out to say, you know, that's really prompted them to take action and see their doctors. And, you know, we've had people saying that, you know, the information from the session that we had on resumes has helped them to write a really good resume. So keep those stories coming. We want to hear more about how this is helping. So this session will run for 60 minutes. If you look on the right hand side of your screen on YouTube, you'll see a little chat box. We're delighted to have some of the team of our Glow Up Career coaches there on hand to answer questions. So yeah, just feel free to ask questions. If we have some time at the end of the session, I'll be able to ask Georgie, who's a wonderful moderator today, to ask the panel some of your questions. If you'd like to share a comment on social media, we'll be using the hashtag BridgingCareers. So it's hashtag BridgingCareers, all one word. Our Instagram account and Twitter handle is @GlowUpCareers, and we're live tweeting the whole event today. So yeah, we get straight into this session. There's so much to talk about, and we've got a wonderful panel of experts lined up for you today. So yeah, everything you need to know about interviewing, and as I mentioned, especially with how we're communicating now, video interviewing is more important than ever. So we'll start off with Stephanie Norris. Welcome, Stephanie. So Stephanie is the talent acquisition manager for Cisco Systems. And I took this idea to Cisco. Tony Beeston, who's one of our Glow Up coaches, works at Cisco and has helped bring this to life. And we've got a whole team of volunteers from Cisco helping out. And yeah, it's been a real team effort. So Stephanie's also got a beautiful dress on today from the social outfit. So big shout out, because you know, a big part of this event is about making sure that we're all treated as equal. And we had a wonderful session moderated by Craig Foster earlier in the week on diversity and inclusion. So Stephanie's dress was made by refugees. And if you want to watch any of the recordings of the previous sessions, they're on this the Glow Up Careers YouTube channel. So just subscribe to that. So Stephanie is the talent acquisition manager for Cisco Systems. She's a dedicated member of the People and Communities team who truly wants to help make the world a kinder place. Her role involves identifying top talent to join Cisco, as well as working with the business across Asia Pacific and Japan on diversity and inclusion, corporate social responsibility. She's a certified business coach and works with clients both within Cisco and externally to help people thrive in their work life. So thank you, Stephanie, for joining us. Next, we have Zarina Robertson. Zarina is a videographer and personal branding specialist. She's the author of Magnetic Branding, the complete guide for a brand that attracts. She's an internationally renowned multi-award winning expert and leader in visual personal branding. These awards have included the Stevie Maverick of the Year Award for Women in Business and the Golden Bridge Best Women Professional of the Year Award. She's launching a global video brand this year called One Click Videos. And on November 12th, there'll be a free masterclass, and you can reach out to Zarina on LinkedIn, and you can see the spelling of Zarina's name on the screen. So reach out to Zarina on LinkedIn and she'll tell you more about that. Thank you, Zarina. So next we have Alex Thompson, who works in the People and Culture Division at Australia Post. Alex leads the Professional Services Talent Acquisition team. He's worked in recruitment, leadership and consulting roles over the past 10 years in a range of industries. Alex is passionate about improving candidate experience and providing more opportunities and pathways for women in leadership and technical roles. So thanks for joining us, Alex. I know it's a busy time of year at Australia Post at the moment, and you guys have really ramped up your delivery services and everything over the last number of months. So last but by no means least, we would like to welcome Georgie Dent. Georgie is a writer, a mum of 3, and passionate advocate for women and families. The former lawyer is the executive director of The Parenthood, a contributing editor of Women's Agenda, and the best-selling author of Breaking Badly, her memoir that was published last year. She's a regular television commentator on The Drum and ABC Weekend Breakfast, and has had many other media appearances and published work. She's more than 30,000 followers between Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, who enjoy her sharp and witty commentary on women, politics, health, money, family and everything in between. And I'm definitely one of those, Georgie. So Georgie, thanks for joining us, and Georgie's going to be moderating this session. And before she starts to ask the panel questions, I just wanted to ask Georgie a quick question. So Georgie, obviously with all of the media work that you've done, you've been involved in a lot of interviews. Like, what are your top 3 tips for people who are attending an interview, and what can they do to prepare for that?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can people hear me now? Okay, sorry, there we go. What a way to start an interview, by not unmuting yourself properly. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for that lovely welcome and for the great question. I just want to acknowledge that I am here in Sydney, and the traditional owners of the land where I am, the Camaragal people of the Eora Nation, and so I would like to also pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I think so. I mean, as a journalist, I do a lot of interviews, but it's a different style of interview to a job interview, obviously. But I suppose what's more like a job interview is when I do media interviews myself. So when I am interviewed, and whether it is for in a forum like this, or whether it is a media interview, or indeed if it is a job interview, I approach it in a pretty similar way, which is it really helps me to think about the fact that it is a conversation, and that it is a two-way communication mechanism. It's not just one person broadcasting their views. And I find, for example, I know that it can be quite intimidating, for example, if you are doing a television interview, and if I sit there and contemplate the fact that this conversation is going to be broadcast quite broadly, that can be quite overwhelming to think about. Whereas if I think about that conversation happening between myself and whoever else is involved, whether it's one other host or whether there's a set of panelists like there are here, I find that really reminding myself that actually what's happening right here is all that matters, and really focusing on it as an authentic communication is really helpful. I think that it is easy to, and it's very natural when you are particularly invested in a particular outcome, and whether that is that you want to come across really well or you want to secure the job, sometimes thinking that through too much can be quite stifling and sort of almost create a sort of paralyzing effect. Whereas I find that if the starting point is, I want to have a meaningful conversation with these people or this person, and I'm really clear on the messages that I want to deliver and what I want to know, I want them to come away thinking, I feel like that's quite a good grounding exercise. and can really focus the mind on what actually matters, which is the person in front of me right now, and how I'd like them to walk away thinking or feeling about the conversation that we just had. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. And it's been interesting as we've had these sessions over the week, how so many things that we're talking about just weave into each other. So we talked the other day on one of our panel sessions, we covered storytelling, and it's just about, how you connect into that conversation and find that mutual point of conversation and connection with that other person. And I'm sure that for the interviews that you do, that you put a lot of time into research and understanding the person that you're going to be talking about and how you can have that conversational connection with them in that moment.
Yeah, and I think what's also, and we will come to this in the questions when I ask the panelists, but I think it is really interesting to contemplate. So the importance of connection is incredibly important, whatever the medium. But when we are doing things purely digitally, the way we are now, that's a really, it is a different exercise in terms of how you can create that connection and how you experience that connection and how you feel it. It is so different to when you walk into a physical space with another person and you sit down and you can read the body language and you can read the environment around you. And so I think that's why doing a session like this is really important, because we are not, I think probably the last few months, lots of us have very quickly got up to speed with how various web platforms work. But it is actually worth spending some time thinking about how you do develop a connection over Zoom. And I know I have started, one of my jobs now as the Executive Director of the Parenthood is a new role for me. I had been on the board for a long time, but I'm now the Executive Director, which I started in July. And it's funny because I have had so many meetings with people and very few have been in person, but when I reflect on it, I've actually built pretty considerable relationships with different people who I've never physically been in a room with, but I would say are sort of close work colleagues now. And it is, it's unusual to contemplate if I would have thought that was possible back in January when this year started, to imagine that we would be. But this is the world we're in, and it is absolutely possible to use video and web and digital to actually develop relationships with people, but it is different.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. And, as I said, we're delighted to use WebEx today to have this conversation. And there's so many different platforms that, as you said, everyone's had to get up to speed with and jump on. And we really want to share some of those experiences today with panels. So, Georgie, I'm going to leave it in your capable hands to explore this topic further. And thank you so much for your insights.
Thanks so much. Well, Stephanie, I am going to start with you. And I want to say, so we've obviously just discussed this, but video interviewing has had a huge surge during COVID. What are some of the differences in your view between face-to-face and video interviews?
So, I'm off mute, yes. Look, I think the questions and all of that, the preparation that goes into the interview, that all remains the same. I guess some of the key differences are you're not actually getting to go in and like shake hands with somebody and be able to read their personal, body language in that space. So there's some great things about being virtual as well, though, because you can have some tips on, stuck up on the wall behind you if you sort of get lost. So there's definitely some advantages to it. But like now I'm looking at the different, it's hard to pick someone to really make a connection with sometimes. But I think the process is still the same. We still want to prepare well, make sure that you're dressed appropriately, which Zarita will go into, and all those things. So I still think at Cisco, we've done a lot of videos over WebEx or WebEx interviews before COVID. So it's always been very ingrained into how we run our recruitment process. So because we have managers all over the world or, around. And so not all of our interviews have been face-to-face sort of traditionally anyway. So I think you still just need to approach it as you would a face-to-face interview.
And thanks for that, Stephanie. Zarina, can I ask you that same question? How would you describe the sort of key differences between face-to-face interviewing and video interviewing?
Hi, I just unmuted. The differences between, well, it's huge. It's big. It's the energy exchange. I'm right into big, into energy exchange, and I think that this having this medium and being on video, you need to harness. There's a lot of things to harness and work, and to present yourself as a candidate for a job and putting your best foot forward. So I think there's a couple of key things that are really vital for all of us to learn from and to refine better is how are we coming across on video to make the other person feel comfortable with us. So how are we coming across in our environment and create our environment? I think number one is create our environment of how we're coming across, like how you're being seen. You are getting judged. We are. And there are times where we might be in the wrong environment to actually speak, present, be. A couple of things is that closely look at yourself and say, you know what, would I hire me in this, how I look today? Would I hire me? Is my clothes, do I look professional? Am I coming to the interview actually looking like I would be walking in the streets of the city ready to go and get an interview? Really take pride in what you're wearing. I think it's vital, no matter, even if you're at home, but take pride in the purpose of that interview and the job you're going for, because it's really important for your self-confidence and the way that you come across to the person that's interviewing you for your job, because they are judging you on how you present yourself. Now, presenting yourself means how are you coming across with in your environment, your lighting on your face, making sure that light on your face is a natural light coming through the window. If try and find that natural light. Try not to be in the shadows in your environment, because you're going to miss that communication opportunity. Key with communicating and actually, making that connection with your interviewer. And what your interviewer is not going to sort of say to you, hey, maybe go and move into another room where there's light. They're just going to accept you how you are and how you turn up. And that's what is crucial. You've got one opportunity to have an interview with a job. Make it the best way possible. Make sure your audio is correct. Make sure that you're actually, testing the whole environment with a friend before you do an interview the day before. Make sure that your internet connection is pretty good and on and working well. I did a presentation. I get to speak a lot. And look, the other day, we don't have, sometimes we don't have total control over our internet connection. And when I was doing a presentation, the internet went out, right? So I was like, oh no, this is crazy. But make sure that you've got a phone number, access to a phone number of your interviewer in case the internet does go out. You just say, I'm sorry, this has just happened, so they know what's going on. Have a glass of water. Make sure the copy of your resume is nearby so that you've got, go-to and, little things like that you can have handy. Make sure you're wearing makeup. I know some people might not like makeup, but wear a little bit of rouge. Might be good. Wear a little bit of lipstick. Alex says he'd like to. No. So there's great things. I think also in your environment where you're looking, your environment is making sure there's about 20 to 30% space above your head. Try not to come too close to your camera, because that can be a bit overwhelming for the person that's interviewing you. Make sure that you've got your head and shoulders, being seen, because, sometimes that connection with your body is also really good. Use your hands to gesture, to communicate your point, to communicate who you are, your personality to come through on video. It's so important. All these body language things, you can actually get over doing them by actually bringing out your personality and connecting with your with the person that's interviewing just by being you. And actually, when you're speaking about something that you really know of and that you're really passionate about, you can actually use your hands and your body and express that. And they're going to enjoy getting to know you and actually feeling who you are through your expressions and through your smile, and, you know, and making sure that who you are, you do come across authentically. And you can have good connections on video. And another point is the biggest point that I've realized with doing a lot of Zooms, I've been doing Zooms for like 10 years, well, you know, virtual meetings, and is actually body. Your body posture is huge amount of, like, it's probably 80% of how I feel comfortable on doing video, and it's about body posture. So right underneath this chair, because I'm tiny, I'm like about size 8 odd, and sometimes the chairs are too big, and sometimes where my Apple computer is and the positioning of where the camera is on the computer, I have to prop myself up. So prop yourself up with pillows or something that gets your body you know, like your back straight. That's vital, and I think that's really important, because when you absolutely having your body straight, your back straight, you're conveying confidence about, and being interviewed is just going to be a lot more easier because you're going to feel more control of your body. And there's a lot about you and your posture, making sure that you're coming across like confident with that. Jewelry, try not to wear too much jewelry that would maybe clank and make noises on the audio as well. That's also a distraction. And making sure that your headphones are also on, but also they can help you to prevent those weird echoes as well. So yeah, there's a couple of things, making sure that you've got a notepad handy, jot down notes, and also come across that you're listening and you're very present in that interview, so that if you're taking down notes, you know, you're understanding, and I'm just taking down notes and things like that. You convey your communication through video, let your interviewer know what you're doing, things like that, and say, hey, in summary, is this what you would like? You know, things like this, you know. These are just some of the little tips. But in regards to your camera, make sure that you're looking eye to your camera on your computer, laptop, your phone. And how to do that really well is, watch me. So where my camera is, my finger. So everybody put your finger up. Everybody put your finger up. Come on, Alex. No. So go like this. And now watch me. And I'm going to point my finger. I'm going to move my finger. Everybody move your finger towards the camera. See where that camera is? Where that is exactly where you all need to look at to communicate and connect authentically with the person that's interviewing you for a job. And it feels a lot more less distracting, because we've got the whole environment in front of us, behind our laptops and around us, that can be distracting, you know, things like that. But if you've got your eyes on the pie, literally eyes on the screen and on that camera, you're going to be a lot more in sync and in tune with how you're coming across with your answers and your body language, and also your energy. It's huge. And here's the thing about energy. I'm really big on energy. If you can put your hands, go like that, everybody. If you go like that, because I'm a big about energy. And also before you do an interview, and I'll just do this. So when you stand up, I'm going to show you. You don't know how to. Is put it here, down here, where you're just down here where your tummy is, a little abdomen. And I'm going to go. Sorry, you see on my body. And I just want you to close your eyes and just breathe and center yourself. I've got this. I've got this. And you talk to yourself and you say, you know, I'm going to be as confident as I can be for this interview because I've got this. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to come across that I know what I want to do, I know what I'm doing, and I know how to do it well. And I'm going to make a connection and make an impact with the interviewer to get this gig. So it's about self-talk. It's about confidence, body language, and centering yourself on video, because we can actually be really nervous about being on video. And if you're not doing it, you know, centered and doing an exercise like that, you're going to be a little bit off kilter. But also make sure that you center your body.
Yeah, thank you, Zarina. There's so much there that is so interesting, and I think really practical suggestions about what people can do to sort of really set themselves up for success in a video interview. Alex, I want to bring you in now. My understanding is that Australia Post will be recruiting for around 3,000 jobs soon, and virtually all of that recruitment will be done via interview. Can you tell me a little bit about that, and also about the sorts of positions that you will be hiring for, and what that process looks like?
Yeah, thanks, Georgie. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, look, it's certainly been an eventful year for Australia Post, and typically our peak season is in the lead up to Christmas, from sort of September through to January. But this year we've been in peak really since April, ever since we went through COVID and people went into working from home. Consumer behaviour has completely changed, and people have started to really shop online, and e-commerce has boomed. So that's been a massive driver of activity for Australia Post. And what it means is we need to hire more people across Australia to meet that demand. The parcel volumes have gone up over 100% in most states. In Victoria, it's been even bigger, just because of this huge change in consumer behaviour, which will shift a bit, but is probably here to stay for many people as they become more confident in the medium of shopping online. So yeah, look, I think for us, in terms of what we're looking for across all states, we'll certainly have a big demand for people to drive vans, to deliver parcels, to sort mail, to work in retail facilities, and also our processing facilities across regional states and regional areas, and in metropolitan areas as well. So I think you'll see pretty soon we go out to market via australiapost.com.au and our careers site for hundreds and hundreds of van drivers in Sydney and Melbourne. So I'd encourage people to look at the careers site on australiapost.com.au and apply for those roles if they're of interest. But we're a big organisation, and we recruit a lot of other positions as well, specialist corporate roles. We're always looking for really strong leaders across all our different areas, whether it's in legal, in strategy, in finance, communications. These are all different types of positions we're constantly recruiting for. But I think the main areas at the moment are really to deliver to our customers, and that's where the majority of our roles are going to be needed over the next 3 months.
And Alex, a question actually came through for you that links to something that I was going to ask as well, which is the question of what you would look for in a video interview. But also the question that came through is, if an interviewee feels a disconnect during a video interview, how do you think the interviewer feels at that point? How does that play out, do you think?
Yeah, if the interviewee feels a disconnect, the interviewer, on video, it's a little bit different. I think back to what Zarina and Stephanie were saying, in a video situation, it's harder to pick up that body language and those cues about, the interaction and how people are kind of feeling and thinking within an interview via video medium. But I certainly, I tend to be in an interview situation observing people quite closely, looking at their face, how they're interacting, how their voice is changing. And so, you would tend to pick up if someone feels a bit uncomfortable, or their mood or their approach has changed. So I think it's definitely, for most interviewers, they're watching very closely, looking very closely for answers, and, do they feel that connection, like Zarina's saying? Are they seeing that person in the role that they're recruiting for? Can they interact with the customers and the stakeholders and the other team members really effectively? And if they're not seeing, that interaction, that communication ability, then that's going to be something that's potentially works against the interviewee. So I think it's really important, as someone interviewing for a role, you do keep really calm and balanced. And, just if you're not quite sure how to answer a question, to sort of ask for more information. That was one of the questions I think we spoke about. Could you please repeat that question? That's something that's okay to say in an interview, but staying calm and balanced and listening to the questions really intently is important when you're interviewing.
Yeah, that's terrific. Thank you, Stephanie. I wanted to ask you now, what are your key tips for preparing for an interview? And how much preparation do you think you need to do as a candidate looking at a new role?
Thanks, Georgie. So I think preparation key. You've done a great CV and you've gotten to the stage where you're having an interview. So this is really your opportunity to demonstrate your skill set and your experience and just, wow the interviewers. So research is so important. And one of the first questions I always ask people is why Cisco? So you should definitely have an answer ready for why you're applying for Australia Post. Sorry, I'm on mute. Why are you interviewing? Why do you want this role? Is it just because you just need a job? And if it is, make something up because you really want to be showing an interest in this particular position. So you can research the company. And I also recommend having a look at who is on the interview panel. LinkedIn's great because you can take a look and see who the people are that you'll be meeting with. Take a look at what news is happening with the company. Definitely research into who are you meeting with, what was their journey like, what are some of their passions, what are they doing at work, trying to really get to know who you're going to be meeting with before you meet with them. We do that for candidates, so it definitely goes both ways. I think it's really important, so once you understand what the role is and you know your why and you understand why you're going for this role, when you're in an interview preparation, do practice interviews with some of your friends. If it's, run through some of your scenarios. So you can use things like the STAR method, have your different situations available in your mind. So I think one of the benefits of working from home is that you can stick up a couple of ideas just so if you get stuck and you've got it behind your laptop. So that's a tip for virtual interviewing. But I think it's really important that you have some solid examples ready and prepared for it. A difficult situation or a difficult customer that you've had at work, or how you've worked well with a team, or a time where you've thought about something and have those examples ready to go and rehearsed. So they're your go-tos that you and the more that you speak about them, the more comfortable you are, and that's your reality, So definitely prepare. It's really obvious when people show up and they haven't. I think it's also really great to have some questions to ask the panel, at least maybe 3 pre-prepared questions, but while you're going through the interview, other questions might come up, but I think it's important to show a genuine interest in the team. This is a real opportunity for you for both parties to understand if there's going to be a synergy, if there's a fit, because as much as an employer is looking for an employee, you also want to be making sure that this is a company that you want to work for and that it aligns to your values and what you'd like to do. So, you could ask questions around why the role is available, or if you're like me, interested in corporate social responsibility, is that something that their team focuses on? So I think it's a great opportunity for you to find out if the company and the role aligns to what you want as well as an employee.
Yeah, that's great. And we've had a question, Stephanie, about, can you talk about the interview process that Cisco uses? So how many might be on the panel and how many interviews, might a candidate go through before the final selection is made?
Sure. So I guess it depends on the role and the types of, so if it's a technical role, the seniority of the role, generally we would probably have you meet 3 to 5 people it could be more. So sometimes it's more. Everything right now is virtual, so it's all over WebEx with video. So you could be meeting one person one-on-one. You could be meeting, or maybe 3 people in a panel interview. Some of the things that we do at the moment, we're having based hiring pilot. So part of the you do an assessment firsthand, then you will go and do a business case presentation. So sometimes if it's a technical role, business presentations will be part of the process, so you can sort of demonstrate what your skills are, your technical understanding, and how to present to customers. But generally, you would meet about 5 people in the whole entire process, and depending on the seniority of the role and if it's technical or not, you might have presentations and things to do as well.
So interesting, and I'm sure that information is really useful for anyone on the call who's listening here, because obviously one of the huge challenges that COVID has presented is a lot of job losses, and therefore there are lots of people right now seriously contemplating how they can best return to the workforce. And so I think it's terrific if anyone is in that position and they're listening to this. I just think there's so many practical tips that are helpful, because I think most people could relate to when you have had a period out of the workforce, whether it's because of, you've had a baby, or because you have lost your job, or there's been a restructure. That is really quite rattling for most people's confidence. And I think that's one of the challenges with any interview process, but perhaps it's pronounced when it's on video, that you really do have to project this enormous amount of confidence to sort of best sell yourself. But that can be tricky when you're not necessarily feeling at your most confident. So Zarina, I might ask you a question sort of about that. How do you recommend people prepare for sort of building their confidence, not just on the actual call itself, but in the lead up to it? Have you got any tips or tricks for people?
I've got lots of tips and tricks that can help people with their confidence. I'll just share something with you. This year I did a beta thing with my one-click videos. I took 20 women through a program to help them with their confidence, and these women were quite shy, not confident, but they needed to know that they have the skill base to be showing up on video. So part of the thing is practice with an environment and with people that you feel comfortable with to express who you really are, to gather that confidence, that inner confidence. Now, confidence on video, it's like a flame. You have to ignite it, and you have to ignite it within an environment that's a bit safe. So it's what my skill base is, helping people with confidence on video. And I think that it just takes somebody to help you, give you feedback in a safe environment, to actually give you feedback on how you're coming across on video, how to refine you and tweak you, how to sort of help you with little bits to sort of align you, so that you go, oh yeah, that was only small bits that I need to fix up, but then you get confident in your lane. And I think that when you have somebody who's got your back, that gives you objective, positive feedback, then that's when you shine, and that's where you can absolutely excel in your interviews. Now, a lot of people are shy, and a lot of people are feeling a bit vulnerable, a lot of really vulnerable right now, and that can show up on video. And I think one of the big things is that you can do for yourself is practice a mock interview with a friend. Practice that, and maybe with somebody else that can help you with absolutely giving you some feedback, instant feedback on how you're going. Now, here's an example. I met somebody, they turned up on a conference call, and they were in the shadows. And because they were in the shadows, I couldn't help myself but help them to shine. And what did I do? I said, hey, would it be okay to help you move to a brighter spot so you can show up in your best self? So when that person did move to the dining room, into the lounge room, whatever, in another place in their environment, they showed up. And it made such a huge difference in their confidence and the way they came across as a professional. So if you're going for an interview, actually find that right environment where you are shining and where you are showing up, because there's nothing better for your confidence as an introvert or somebody who's going through a bad period of trying to find a job. And nothing's worse than actually being in the shadows doing an interview. If you can harness these simple little things, confidence, getting feedback, presenting and positioning yourself in an environment that you feel great in, that is 90% of the battle. 10% is absolutely talking to your interviewer with all of you, with all your authenticity, with what you know and how you know how to do things. It's just awesome, you know, when you can make sure you know that you've got 90% of you shining on video correct, you know. So absolutely getting the feedback is crucial. Friends, I have to admit, will always probably go, oh, you know, look, you look great, Sally, you look great. But, you know, at the end of the day, get the expert's point of view on you and you're going to shine. So that's why I do what I do, my one-click videos and, you know, confidence in 5 days challenge.
Yeah, so interesting. Alex, can I ask you about, I mean, one of the tricky things I think for lots of people when you do an interview is the issue about how and when you follow up afterwards and what is sort of the appropriate way to communicate after an interview. How do you recommend people approach the issue of following up after an interview?
Yeah, thanks, Georgie. It's always an interesting question for people, and it's a really often a tense, uncertain time because people are really keen on this role. They want to know how they went. You know, they either feel they've interviewed well or they haven't, and then they're really you know sweating on that outcome. So I think a lot of it depends on sort of how expectations are set post the interview or at the end of the interview by the people that you're interviewing with. They might say, you know, we'll be back in touch with you within 3 days. And if they are setting those expectations, then you know, I would always recommend that people wait until after that time, 4 or 5 days have gone by before they do follow up. Obviously, if the expectations have been set with you, then you know they're giving you that time frame, and they're managing expectations with you. If they've said, "Oh, we'll be in touch," and they haven't, sort of indicated when that's going to be, I think 2 to 3 days after the interview, is fine to check in politely and inquire as to the status of your application and how that's going. So I think that's absolutely fine. But one thing I would actually say is that if you've got the details of the recruiter or the people that you've interviewed with, it's absolutely fine to email, within 24 hours of the interview and say, it was really great to meet you. It's fantastic to hear more about the role and the company. And I look forward to hearing back from you soon. Like, that is a very polite, professional way to, again, like Zarena's saying, it's sort of building that connection, via another medium, just so that, they can see your true self coming through, that you're going to be, that's how you are with them. That's how you're going to be with customers, with your teammates. It's all really positive messaging that you're giving out. So that would sort of be my general advice around following up.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Do you think it's okay to connect? I mean, you sort of did answer this question then anyway, but do you think it is okay to connect with the interviewer on LinkedIn?
That is a really good question. It's often about timing, I think. I'm not sure you do that as you're sitting in the waiting room or 5 minutes before the interview. I think it's probably about timing is my view. So I think if I think about it from my perspective and I think about candidates and how they should manage that, typically I would certainly do that once you've had an outcome from the role. That's just my personal view, is that you go through the process, and then if you're successful, awesome, connect with them on LinkedIn, they're in your network. If you're not, for whatever reason, then connect with that person to be in your network as well. I don't think necessarily doing that sort of during the recruitment process or interview process is the best approach, but it generally won't sort of have a negative impact on you. But yeah, that would be my general advice on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. You certainly have to be mindful of the timing around if and when you make that sort of approach. But I think you're right in saying that if you've already got their contact details, then within 24 hours, sending a note to say thanks so much for the interview. Really appreciated your time. I think that's a really good way to indicate your genuine interest and commitment in the role. I think I also was just thinking, as the three of you were speaking, that at the Parenthood we recruited a person for a role, and we interviewed a number of candidates, and then we interviewed 2 candidates for a second round interview and set a task. And the 2 candidates were really, really close on all metrics, and the one had slightly more experience that we thought would be useful, and that was ultimately what we used to decide. But the person we chose ended up not taking the role, and it was a lesson for me in that, I mean, we were in a really lucky position in that both of the candidates that we had, the 2 final candidates were both really solid, but the man that we ended up hiring was really honest with us in the interviews and afterwards. And when I initially said that he didn't have the role, he was really graceful and gracious, but he was also he indicated the fact that he was genuinely disappointed because of a number of reasons why he was really excited to work with us. And it meant that when the initially chosen candidate decided ultimately she didn't want to actually change jobs, it was so easy to know that even though technically he was our second pick, he wasn't actually our second pick. He was a great pick, and we're so lucky to have hired him. But it just was a reminder to me that it is actually always worth sort of putting your stake in the ground. And if you really want a job, it's really worth communicating that to the person who might hire you, even if you're not going to get that job initially, because I do think opportunities come up. And again, that's another tricky play around confidence, is if you're not feeling amazingly confident and you may have just been rejected potentially and have some disappointment, but actually if you're really keen on working with that organisation or those people, it's always worth saying that, because you just don't know where that might land later. And so another question here, and Steph, I'll bring you in on this, is what are your thoughts on keeping in touch with an organisation if you are unsuccessful in the recruitment process?
So just to follow up from what you just said, just because you missed an opportunity, there's hopefully another opportunity that's coming up. There could be, that one could fall through. That there's always roles. So I've definitely, I'm always happy to stay in touch with top talent, and we would, I've definitely hired people over the years here at Cisco who have not made it through their first or their second go. So maybe they've made it on the third go, or, and I think that the people that really want to work here, you do stay in touch and just do reach out about opportunities that come up. So I think it's very important to always send that thank you email. It's just polite, right? It's just thank you for your time. Thanks for organizing it. Not, nothing else. You don't have to ask about the status or when you're going to find out the answer. Just say thank you for your time. And then exactly, because you don't want to burn bridges. You never know as well. This person that has interviewed you for this role might end up at the next company that you're going to interview for again as well. So just remember that everyone's connected, especially in, IT. It's quite a small industry. So very important follow up.
Oh, sorry, I just committed the cardinal sin of speaking while I was on mute. Definitely don't try and do that in an interview. But Alex, again, what are your thoughts there on approaching keeping in touch with an organisation or an individual if you are unsuccessful?
Yeah, look, I think what Stephanie's saying is absolutely true, and there's lots of different ways of doing that as well. So it doesn't just have to be like contacting people directly to stay in touch. Like that's one way, but you can also be, signed up for job alerts on their website so that you're actually receiving notification when opportunities come up. You can be following the CEO on Twitter or on LinkedIn, so you're getting their updates, or anybody that's in the company, you can sort of connect with them on LinkedIn to hear what's going on. But I think if you're genuine about wanting to work at an organisation, you should absolutely look at all the different touch points where you can get information about what the company's doing, the changes that are happening, and where they're going, because that's only going to help you, I guess, be aware of the opportunities, but also, to have information to take to a new interview in future or a conversation, with a person in that organisation. So that's all, lots of different touch points, but I think it's also important to create some personal connection as well. And so look for any opportunity to actually continue to have conversations with people in the recruitment team or a leader who might hire in future for a role you're interested in.
Thank you for that. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I would like to ask the three of you to give me your top 3 pieces of advice to having a successful interview. And Zarina, I'll start with you, if that's okay.
Unmute yourself. Shocker. Okay, so definitely center yourself before you turn up. Take 5 minutes to go, you know what is my goal? What impression do I want to leave with the interviewer? And what feeling do I want to leave with them? My passion, your knowledge, your focus and things like that. Making sure that you're leaving you've got your environment set up right. There's no distractions. Keep your phone off, and making sure that they see you. They see you in all the light. That's really important because there's such a great connection when you can get natural light onto your face or near you, and not in the shadows. Really think about that positioning of you for them, and I think that's half the battle. And your energy levels, get it up there. And so that you feel that that they leave and they know that you want the job, because it's all about energy. If you're shy, try and muster up that, the courage and being brave to actually go, you know what, I want this job. I'm going to give it myself. So you can just really think about that in your mind. So you come across that you do want that job with the interviewer, because it's really hard to get your energy across sometimes if you're feeling a bit flat, but making sure that you are aware of how you're coming across. I think that's important. Don't be shy, but be assertive, but be present. Be present.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you so much, Zarina. Stephanie, what are your top 3 pieces of advice to nailing a successful interview?
So preparation is key. Do your research on the company, the role, have your, know what your strengths are, and so have your examples ready to go, so that you've got your toolkit of when they ask questions about when you've been successful, when you've demonstrated teamwork, those sorts of things. You just have your go-to answers so that they're ready to go. And just do your best, and don't second guess yourself afterwards, because once it's done, it's done. So just go in, do your best. If you've done your preparation, that's great. And then send a thank you email, because you want to stay in touch in case other opportunities, for the future. So I think that's always a really polite thing to do.
Excellent. And Alex, finally to you, what are your top pieces of advice for a successful interview?
Yeah, I think Zarina and Stephanie covered them really well there. But, what I would say is I'd echo that, preparation is the key. Get as much information as you can about what the interview is going to entail, and really prepare yourself well in terms of research and getting ready for the interview. I think for me, why someone wants the position and how they articulate that is something that's really important. So put some effort and thought into that. Why do you want this opportunity? In this current market, we've got a lot of people applying for roles. There's a lot of competition. And so you've got to be able to stand out. And that motivation for the role is so critical. And that means a lot to me when I'm interviewing people. So I think be really clear about your why. It's not just about getting a job. Obviously, for you internally it is, but you've got to go beyond that in your interview. And then I think just a small thing is just have some good questions. Whether you get to ask them all or not, I think having 3 or 4 questions that you're ready to ask that show you've got some depth and thought about the organisation, and you actually genuinely want to know some things about the people or the company or the role, that shows that you're motivated and you're switched on and you're genuine about your interest in the position. So they're my 3 key ones.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, Alex. That's all really valuable. And I agree with you completely that getting the why right is, I think, can be a game changer in terms of setting candidates apart. And particularly, as you say, because there will be lots of candidates applying for different jobs, that's something that is potentially can bring you to life, sort of off the page of your resume, is having a really compelling explanation for why this position and this organisation is for you. So thank you so much to the three of you. I believe I'm meant to be handing over to Yvonne now, but I don't know whether that's...
Amazing. Thank you, Georgie. Yes.
Oh, you are taking over.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was such a wonderful discussion. And I just have one question for each of you. This week, we've been running this amazing program, and we've had lots of people on videos, we've had people watching from all over the world, people on the panels from all over Australia. Tomorrow, we've got Sebastian Terry from LA. And we've all had technical glitches. So I think you guys mentioned that, things can happen at home, and it could be audio, it could be background. Yesterday, one of our beautiful panel members was locked out of her house, and she was able to just jump in her car and, and get on the screen. And it was such a great, it just added such a great, story to what has happened. Deborah Woolard from Cisco shared a story on Monday about her first interview with Cisco, where she had some technical issues herself on WebEx. So I'd love to hear from each of you. What's the kind of best story that you have in relation to either something you've heard or something that's happened to you that's either been funny or that's been a bit tricky, that you've had to just really jump in and handle when it comes to being on video interview. Georgie, do you want to start? I'm sure you've got some stories.
I think probably, as anyone who has got small children in their house who has been navigating working, our older two girls are back at school now, but the younger one, anyway, I think I have lived in fear of having a sort of BBC dad moment of a child sort of running in. And I did do one ABC TV interview that was live, and my two younger children, despite being told they had to stay out of the study, were coming in and putting toys in the background. And that was incredibly distracting for me. And you couldn't actually really see it on the screen, but I knew it was happening, and it was the most terrifying television interview I've ever done. And I would not recommend that. So if there is a lock available on your door and there are small children, only for a short period of time, I'm not promoting neglect, but making sure little people can't enter the room is probably a good idea when required.
Yeah, amazing. And look, I think during this time, obviously that BBC, we all know that story, and it's interesting how things have changed so much in the last 6 to 12 months that that's now acceptable, and you can talk about it, and people are sharing their animals and introducing their kids, and it's kind of really nice that that's become more acceptable. So I agree with you that you've still got to be professional, and I think you've got to be used to jumping in and explaining those situations if they do happen. And most of the time, I'm sure Stephanie and Alex, you'd agree that interviewers are pretty lenient and understanding when it comes to that. So well done, Georgie. I understand I've got two small kids as well, and my daughter did walk in when I was on a client call recently, and luckily the client was really lovely and started asking her questions and brought her into the conversation. So that was really nice. Stephanie, what about you?
Actually, I have a funny one. Recently, I was someone who was in a room and they had the door open to the hallway, and so we're chatting about Cisco. Someone walked past in a towel, obviously walking from a bathroom to get dressed, and they were, I didn't see any bums, but there was someone walking from the bathroom, obviously to get dressed. So I thought that was a bit funny. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to embarrass that person, but it was quite funny. So close the door for children or partners in towels. 'Cause it's distracting.
Great, thank you. Alex, have you got any stories?
Yeah, one about, I guess, my own interview, actually. My first professional role I went for I was living in London, and I was on the tube going into Covent Garden, and the tube broke down. I got kicked off. I was about 20 minutes away from this interview, and I had to get there in 10 minutes. So sprinting across London, about 5 kilometres, turned up to this interview completely drenched in sweat and just said, "Can I please have a glass of water?" And they were so lovely, and I ended up getting the role, but it was the most stressful 10 minutes of my life before that interview, but it kicked my career off, so it all ended up well.
Amazing. Serena?
That unmute button, that's my best friend. So I did a presentation, and it was on it was very early on in COVID, and it was a panel, and the facilitator hadn't stopped my video, so I didn't realize that they hadn't stopped the video, but it was still showing. So I was in the background and changing. And everybody, and I wasn't like, I just changing. And then, so that I was kind of just getting a little ready because it wasn't my time to be on the panel. And then when I got on, they were like, oh, because they could sort of say, there was sort of like I was changing, but I wasn't naked, but I was changing, like changing top sort of thing. Like, anyway, getting a jacket on or something. Anyway, everybody's energy, I could feel like, oh, like they were, you could feel like, did she know that she, and we could see her? It was all like, gosh, I was like, and it was only after it that someone said, did you know that the facilitator hadn't stopped your video, or had actually started it before you got on? So it was a bit of a mishmash, right? Anyway, it wasn't that bad. But it was just
from coming back from that. So I think, it happens to the best of us. So I think you just have to be prepared to, talk about it, make fun of it, make light of it. And I think on video now, as we've talked about, these things can happen. So thank you so much to each of you. Thank you, Georgie, Stephanie, Alex, and Zarina, for some really practical advice. And our morning sessions have been full of lots of gold and practical advice. And these videos will be available for free on the YouTube channel, and so you can share if you feel that this could help out a friend, or somebody who's going for an interview or who's looking for a job. Some of these tips are really going to help during these times. So if you'd like to engage further with us, I'm just going to pop up a QR code if you've got further questions that we can reach out to those panel members and put you in touch. We've got some podcasts and workshops coming up on the back of this event, so we can keep in touch. Subscribe to the YouTube channel Glow Up Careers. You'll be, as I said, all of these videos will be available for you to access. And this afternoon at 2 o'clock, we've got we're talking about wellness and well-being, which is obviously so important for us to take that self-care. And we have Stephen Bradbury, Michelle Chevelli-Hedge, Nick Bowditch, and Faye Calderon, who will be joining our panel too this afternoon. And then we've got 2 more amazing panels tomorrow at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So thank you to our wonderful panel, and especially Georgie for moderating such a rich discussion. Thanks, everyone.